Good afternoon and happy Friday. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Brentwood. We're going to start today's meeting with an invocation by Mark McFerrin, and then Alan Treadway is going to lead us in the pledge and four-way test.
All right, before we pray, how many been to summer camp? Ever? Summer camp? Ever? Ever? Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church camp, mud camp, cross-country camp, it's a ton of things. Wednesday night, right across the freeway here, I had the privilege of doing something that this club is sensitive to, and that's kids with disabilities. So imagine 5 nights away, Young Life Caperna. Young Life Caperna is for kids with special needs. They got to go to camp. Junior high and high school age kids. My daughter was part of the team that helped counsel and do all that. Bus pulls in. You've never seen so much excitement of kids getting off a bus to see mom and dad. And you've never seen such rested moms and dads who've had a 5-night break. Some of you know what that means because you deal with that in your own home. Or you have friends that are fatigued all the time. So that's that beauty. Man, I just got so inspired seeing that. I pass that on to you because of what this club means to a lot of people that are in the disability community, especially kids. And summer camp's just fun. And I'm in my outfit, right? I'm in my summer camp outfit at Barefoot Republic, enjoying it every day. Kids in day camp as well as overnight camp. Good things are happening at camp. So I hope you have good memories of your camp. And if you don't, talk to somebody who does. Before we pray, I'm going to ask you to do something maybe out loud or quietly, but think of one person who's heavy on your heart who needs prayer today. Maybe somebody in this room, somebody in your family, friend, coworker, one name. And as we bow, I'm going to just ask you to say that name out loud or to yourself as a recognition that God, please be in that person's life. Let's pray and say that name together. Connor. Father, we know that you hear our prayers. That's the good news about praying to a living God. Thank you. And we have prayed weekly for a lot of people in this club, myself included. And we will continue to pray and lift them up by name who need your healing touch physically, emotionally, financially, relationally. I mean, we can all relate to those things. So thank you for being a God who cares, being a God who's personal. We invite you into our meeting today again. We thank you for summer camps and just the fact that kids all over this county, all over this country, all over this world get to go. And many of us have experienced that when we were younger and the impact it had on our lives, just being really outdoors, being with older people who care about kids. Thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for Barefoot. Thank you for Young Life Caperna and a lot of other things that this club continues to be involved in. We give you glory in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
And now, if you would join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands. And for the four-way test, first, second, third, and fourth. We certainly hope so.
Great. Now I'm going to ask Drew Rogers to introduce guests and visiting Rotarians.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the June 23rd meeting of our club. I'm Drew Rogers. I'm standing in for Stephen Hammers today to introduce our guests and visiting Rotarians. I'm going to begin with Susie Lindsay.
Hey, everybody. I'm just excited. This is my sister, Lisa. She is here visiting from Springfield, Illinois. She's a school teacher. She is very involved in kids' lives, very involved in camp and all that. And she finally had a free time to come visit. And she was coming to hang out with me. And I'm like, oh, and we get to go to Rotary. So this is her first Rotary experience. Welcome.
Yay.
Welcome, Lisa, and we're glad that you're here. I'm going to go next to Jennifer Shepard, who has a guest as well.
Thank you. This is my longtime friend, Jana Rawls. We grew up together in Auburn, Alabama, and great, awesome place to grow up. And she has been in real estate there in Auburn. Right now, she's transitioning to Franklin. So I said, hey, you're going to be transitioning to Williamson County. You got to meet the movers and shakers of Williamson County. So anyway, thanks, Jana.
Welcome, Jana, War Eagle, of course, always. Laura Troop also has a guest.
This is my dear friend Courtney Shake. Courtney is a health coach manager at Hinge Health. And we've been friends for a long time, and our daughters are besties. So I'm grateful that she's here. Her granddaddy used to be a Rotarian. So pretty excited to have her here.
Welcome, Courtney. I'm going to go to Sybil Buchanan next.
All right, so with us today, visiting from the Nashville Opera, is Claudia McCauley. She's the Director of Development. And somewhere is Will Shoes that is sitting at the children's table. I'm not sure why. Director of Marketing and Public Relations. And then visiting soprano is Sangeeta Akabara. I did it.
Welcome. We're all very glad that you're here, and thank you for being here today. Jack Masari has a guest.
Owen Zadunsky with Brentwood Real Estate, who business in town, and he's here.
And last but certainly not least, we have a visiting Rotarian that I want to introduce to you, Clark Hildebrand from the Brentwood Morning Club. Clark.
Clark Hildebrand from the Berlin Morning Rotary Club, from Brentwood originally, and worked for the Tennessee AG's office up in Nashville.
Great.
Wonderful. Clark, we're glad that you're here, and to all of our guests, we're glad that you're joining us. And with that, Jane, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. So now I'm going to ask Becky Nunnally, who is about to not be a guest any longer, to come up and be officially introduced and inducted to our club. So Becky, hopefully most of you have met her by this point. She's been visiting for several weeks now. She comes from Oxford, Alabama. She was a Rotarian previously there. She works for Canterfield Senior Living in Franklin. She has 3 children, one who is only one left on the family payroll. That is a daughter who is studying astrophysics. So she also has a son who is in the law enforcement realm, and then another son who does behavioral development, working with autistic children. And Becky and her husband met at Jacksonville, Alabama State University. And we are thrilled to have her here in Brentwood and here at our club to become a new member. So welcome back. Is your new member package? You want to say anything or?
Glad to be here. Thank you for
Glad to be
welcoming
official.
me in official. Thank you.
Awesome. Now we've got a few announcements real quick, and then we'll do Happy Bucks. First, I'm going to ask Larry Kane to come up and talk about our favorite subject. Favorite subject.
So Jack State, where's Becky? Jack State, right? A long, long time ago in a land far, far away, I pitched against Jack State at their place in a ball game. Gave up the most runs I ever gave up in a college game. To Jacksonville State, come on. Okay, that's beside. Golf tournament. As I said last week, we had a very slow week the week before last. We didn't sell a thing. We still have 102 sponsorships, whole sponsorships to cover. We've now sold 16. We had 11, if you remember last week. So we got 16. So we're making little progress there. So we've got to work on that, and you're going to hear more and more from your team captains. And if you haven't heard from your team captain, let me know, because they're supposed to be contacting you to get out and get those holes sold. Now, let me tell you a quick story of how this is supposed to work. There's a member who is not here today, unfortunately, who has every excuse in the world to say, I can't sell any. I really can't do it because of my position. Okay. And he called me back in March and he said, I keep saying just ask. And he said, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to ask some of my buddies. I've got a lot of friends and I'm going to ask somebody. I said, okay, great. This week he sold his 6th sponsorship, $7,200 worth of sponsorships. Ray Little, the mayor, owns his own business, runs it all day long, and he also runs our city. He has the time and the effort, has made the effort. And he told me, I'm not through, because he's realized how easy it is. He just asked, he said, if they say no, so what? I go on to the next one. So I've got something for him, and I'm gonna give it to him this here next week, but that's how it's supposed to work, folks, okay? We're good, we're in good shape still, we got plenty of time, but we need those sponsorships that are still outstanding from last year. So if you've got any of them, get on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sounds like Ray has more friends than I do. So want to remind everybody that our banquet is next week, next Thursday evening. And so we will not be meeting here next Friday. Alan, you paying attention? We will not be here next Friday. And guess what? We will not be here the Friday after that either, in observance of the 4th of July. So we will not be back in this room until the 14th, July 14th. Okay. And then final announcement, you guys, we have an opportunity to finally beat the Columbia Breakfast Club in per capita giving to Rotary International. They win every year. And unfortunately, the Rotary International website is down right now, so that I had checking the numbers and wanted to be able to report to you all how close we were to beating them. So if we all gave 20 or 25 more dollars to RI, then we could likely surpass them. I do think they're probably checking numbers too, since the district governor is from their club. But if you haven't, please consider giving. We have until next Friday to do it. So you could do it on the Rotary International website, which is down right now, or you can call this phone number and give by phone. That's the phone number to Rotary International. And we will help you. If anybody has trouble, call or text me or Drew. Just volunteer Drew for something else. And we'll help you to be able to do that. We would love to beat the district governor's club. And then now with that, I guess we're ready for Happy Bucks, and Beth Dormany is going to lead us in Happy Bucks.
All right, so Bert just told me that I have a $250 minimum today, and I missed club last week, so I'm not sure what that's about. So I don't know if someone just really reeled in the money last week, but who's happy? Wow,
Oh, my Lord. Get happy.
so much happiness.
Get happy.
Here we go.
My 15-year-old got to pitch on Vanderbilt's baseball field yesterday, and it was amazing to watch. So I'm really proud.
That is exciting. That's always happy. Who else is happy? I'm up to $2, so I've got 248 more to
48 to
go.
go.
It'll be a long club meeting.
Bert, sounds like Bert ought to pony up.
That's what I'm saying. Talk about pressure. All right, somebody else happy? At least one more person. Here we
Alan.
go.
So this is $1 Jim Billers gave me. I appreciate it. No, get away. All right. I will be at the banquet. I'm so excited. My girlfriend got a brand new dress, and yeah, she's so excited. I told her we're going to Brentwood Country Club, so I'll see you guys there.
Oh, Lord, now everyone's going to show up at the wrong place. All right, what about this table? I've got 247 more to go. Anybody happy? Jane, are you happy?
I'm happy. This is my last regular meeting presiding. Happy about that? Not really happy about that, but
We are.
trying to help Beth reach her
That's right,
fundraising
all right.
goal.
Anybody else? We got any more, anybody else happy out there?
All right,
I
fine.
think that's it.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. Sybil is now going to introduce our very cool program today.
Okay, so I'm very happy to introduce Stephen Carey. He is in his first season as the Director of Engagement with the Nashville Opera, as well as overseeing Opera on Wheels and chorus master, starting with the 2023-24 Nashville Opera season. Prior to Stephen's arrival to Nashville, he was the music director for the opera programs at the University of North Texas and Texas Christian University. Stephen served as the artistic director, chorus master, pianist, and vocal coach for Opera in Memphis, and later as the principal pianist and vocal coach for the Fort Worth Opera. Stephen has served on the artistic staffs of several summer opera festivals, such as the American Institute of Musical Studies in Graz, Austria, Opera in the Ozarks, Ashland Highland Opera, Chautauqua Opera, Utah Festival Opera and Musical Theater, and Charlottesville Opera. Today, Stephen will tell us about the Nashville Opera and then honor us with some performances. So please join me in welcoming Stephen Carey.
So the first question I want to ask you guys is, first off, raise your hand if you've been to an opera before. Fantastic. Actually, more, I had no idea what to expect. So, okay. So for those that haven't been to an opera, what has been the hesitancy about going to an opera? If you don't mind answering that question, raise your hand. What? Boring. Well, okay. So the thing is, I'm just saying. But let me ask, why do you feel like it's boring? It's gonna be long and I don't understand what's going on. Okay, so what I would say is, because I've been involved with a lot of programs that with opera companies that we would call like mythbusters, that basically you disprove all the myths about that people feel about opera. Okay, so what I would say is, first off, you probably know this, but there's always super titles that are going on. And usually they'll have it at all different levels. They'll have it above the stage, on the sides. So literally, like, it's impossible not to see a translation of what's going on, which in the grand scheme of things is no different than watching a foreign film. So I always go for that right off the bat. Any other things that people would say? All right, well, I've got a couple other things that I'm going to mention. So I would say that generally there are plots that, you know, people feel like they don't understand, or they feel it's super antiquated, it's like 200 plus years old and all that. Well, I would say that in general, the overall subject matter is pretty much the same subject matter you're going to see in any film nowadays, or even 50 years ago. You know, you could go current to old. But I would also say that with contemporary operas, which I think tends to create more hesitancy in people coming to see them, honestly, those plots are as current as they could possibly be. I mean, I think of a couple pieces like I know Nashville Opera did it several years ago. I was involved in the professional premiere of it at Fort Worth Opera, but there's an opera called Glory Denied by a composer named Tom Chiapullo, and it's about the longest held POW during Vietnam. His name was Jim Thompson. And it's basically the first half of the opera sort of deals with the struggles that he had while in Vietnam, as well as his wife back in the United States, not knowing what was going on. And then the second half is where he finally comes back to the United States. They meet, and it's sort of, you know, how their relationship develops from there on. So really, most contemporary operas all have a very, very contemporary or modern subject matter to it. So I feel like that's another thing. So another thing that I would say is that I feel like people tend to think, okay, if I'm going to come to an opera, I've got to be in a tux, or I've got to be like dressed to the absolute nines. I would say that's 100% not true at this point. You could have people show up to the opera that are literally in jeans and a sports jacket, or not even wearing a sports jacket. You get people that show up in a suit and tie, but like really it's all the combination. You don't have to be in a tux to come to an opera. You can totally come as you feel comfortable. The last thing I would say is that, again, like you feel like you come to an opera, you're just literally going in to sit at the show and don't have like a lot of other things to be able to engage you while you're there. Nashville Opera, if you attend an opera with the company, you will not have that experience. Basically, as you come in, as we had with Pirates of Penzance this spring, I was with Will, our director of marketing and PR, literally right there where the audience members were coming in. And he was right there to offer, you know, like grab bags, certain materials, give you like all kinds of information about either the current show or shows that were going to be coming up. There's, you know, pre-talks where you can learn about the shows in advance with a 20-minute talk that John Humes, the general director, does. There's also like costume contests or for like pirates. We had tons of people show up in all kinds of crazy getup as pirates, and they could take pictures as they come in. For the shows that we do at the Lift Center, which is the opera's headquarters, they do signature cocktail drinks for each performance. I think that's pretty cool. And if you go to shows at TPAC, the Tennessee Performing Arts Center, there it's basically popcorn and wine, and you can actually bring it into the theater. That's pretty cool. So any other things that would hinder you guys to go to see a show? Have I hopefully qualmed most of those like concerns? Will's gonna have another one. What was it? Well, okay. So for some companies that may be the case, but not with Nashville Opera. I don't know what the cheapest ticket is that people could get.
$30 for any adult, $20 for any student.
Okay, so you barely can go to a movie at the movie theater for that price, which is generally why I don't go to the movie theaters. But that is really not bad. Okay, all right, I'm going to jump on to the next subject matter. So one of the programs that I'm over that Sybil mentioned is our Opera on Wheels program. So Opera on Wheels started during the time of COVID with the opera company, because at that point we were not being able to do performances indoors as much. So we had to have an outdoor venue, or tried to come up with an outdoor venue. So the opera purchased this like a stage. It's basically a trailer that they converted to be able to open up, and it's literally a full stage. Has the curtain, has the lighting. We can do performances during the day, at night. It didn't matter the situation. And we bring these programs out into the greater Nashville area. And what is pretty amazing is that because of donors and sponsors with the opera company, we are able to give these events to the different venues for free. It was pretty awesome. So we are actually at the tail end of our current tour of Opera on Wheels. We've definitely been into numerous retirement communities, et cetera, within the greater Nashville area. But then we've also been, to a number of different public venues. So we did 4 performances of Opera on Wheels, 4 20-minute sets at the Nashville Zoo for Mother's Day. We then were at Movies in the Park at Elmington Park for all 4 Thursdays. We just literally had our last one last night. We did a performance in Spring Hill last Friday. We did a performance at NAMAM, the National Museum of African American Music, on Monday of this week. And then we have one last performance on July 1st at Centennial Park at 3 p.m. So I would invite you guys, if you're able to come, I would love to have you guys there for that performance. So these performances basically have 3 singers, which the singer that is going to be singing here in a little bit, Sangeeta, she is one of, I would say, about 15, 16 people that we have involved in these performances. Which this current tour, we had 23 performances. I apologize if I didn't mention that earlier. And so it's about 45-minute programs that we do, try to keep the opera stuff to things that people would recognize, which I think you'll know both pieces that Sangeeta is going to sing today. You might not know them by title, but you'll definitely know them when you hear them. And so we try to make these programs a combination of opera and musical theater, sometimes jazz. It just depends on who the singers are on the given program. So we do have upcoming tours for Opera on Wheels, which I am in the process of booking right now. And I would encourage that if you guys know of any venues that you think would be good places for us to be looking at bringing an Opera on Wheels performance, please let me know. My email is very easy. It's my first initial and then my full last name. So SCAREY@NashvilleOpera.org. Easy to remember. Some people say scary@NashvilleOpera.org. So there you go. But the tour dates that we have coming up are basically going to be October 1 to 28, November 13 to December 1, and then it's basically mid-April to July 1 in 2024. So like I said, if you have venues that you think would be great places for us to bring a program to, please email me. So next, I would like to introduce our guest singer that we have today. We have Sangeeta Ekambaram. She's originally from Huntsville, Alabama. She's performed with the New York Chamber Music Festival, the Metropolitan Opera Guild, Opera Huntsville, and the opening gala concert at the Amadeo Bassi Festival in Italy. She's also been involved in interdisciplinary and multicultural artistic programs. She's been involved with a project with Oz Arts, with their Brave New Works Lab, and a creative adaptation of, you may or may not know this piece, but Ravel's Scheherazade. You may recognize melodies if you heard that, but she's been involved with that and had performances at the Frisk Art Museum. And this fall, she'll be with the new Chamber Music Festival, and we'll be traveling to Europe for some other things that'll be upcoming. So our first selection that we're going to do is going to be O mio papino caro, which is from an opera by Puccini, who was really famous Italian composer from the 1800s. The long story short is the character that Sangeeta will be singing this aria of, basically she's pleading her father to be able to be with the love of her life. And I won't go into the details, but she goes through all kinds of things that she would do if her father doesn't give in. So this is O mio papino caro from Puccini's Gianni Schicchi.
Oh mio bambino, sì, sì.
I have to tell you, literally every single time Sangeeta sings, I always tell her, you sing so beautifully. And she does every single time. It doesn't matter whether it's like first thing in the morning, whether it's, you know, an evening performance, it's always beautiful. So thank you very much for doing this today. So I want to tell you next about two education outreach programs that we have beyond Opera on Wheels. We have our school tour shows that we do, which are pretty fantastic. I had the opportunity to be able to be involved with this last school tour, where basically over 30 years now, the opera company has been going within the greater Nashville area to over 50 schools. This last tour that we did was a slightly longer period of time. We were actually in 100 different schools within about a 2-month period, in addition to having some community performances that we did on basically on the weekends. And we reached over 25,000 children. And again, those programs due to sponsors, just like with Opera on Wheels, the programs, at least as of now, are being able to be offered for free to the schools, which is, I think, pretty amazing. I've worked for several different opera companies, and that has never been the situation anywhere else that I have worked. So I think that's pretty phenomenal. And basically what we present, it's a combination of different programs. There's a fully staged show with sets and costumes, of, you know, a children's story that basically they have a rendition of. So the one that we did this past, it's basically in February, March, sometimes into early April. This past spring, we did one that was based on the the Goylock. No, what was it? My bad. It was Big Bad Wolf. So we did that show. This upcoming year is going to be, I found out just the other day from our education director, is that's actually going to be a retelling of the story of the Three Little Pigs. So it's always programs like that that they will take into the schools. And then in addition, for middle schools and high schools, they do a program called Opera Out Loud, which is basically a concert of a combination of opera and musical theater, usually about 35 to 40 minutes. And then they end with the Q&A, so that, again, the students, you know what I mean, just as you guys might have hesitancy about opera, same thing with the students, you know, they'll have tons of questions about, you know, either how you got involved in it, or like, you know, how can they relate to the given pieces, all of that kind of thing. So it's the same kind of education work that we do with the kids. So we also have another program that we do called the HBCU Fellowship, which are basically with the HBCU schools in the area. This coming year is going to be the 4th year of this program. And basically it's a partnership with Tennessee State University and Fisk University, where they provide to a select number of college students masterclasses and roundtable discussions with all different people within the opera business. Could be general directors, could be agents, costumers, people that would take your headshots, all kinds of things. And so it's providing them opportunities that they most definitely would not be able to have otherwise. If you would like to find out information about whether it's a combination of the school tour shows or the HBCU program, you can go onto our website and you can find tons of information there. Basically, it's www.nashvilleopera.org. And the last thing that I would love to tell you guys about are our main stage shows for this next season. So we're going to start out with a piece called Pagliacci. Have any of you ever heard of that opera? Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, so this production will be taking place September 21 and 23 at TPAC. And the way I would describe it is basically it's exactly what you expect like big Italian grand opera to be. It's all about love and death. There is so much of that in this opera. We also sort of jokingly say at the opera, it's clowns with knives, which is not an exaggeration. So, and with John Hooms being the general director, who I have seen several shows over time that he has directed, and they tend to be very physical shows, I cannot imagine what this production is going to be like. So it's going to be quite intense, and yeah, I don't think you would be disappointed to come see it. I would not bring high school kids to this, more than likely, but you know, adults definitely. Next piece we're going to be doing is a piece called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. That's going to be November 10 and 12 at the Opera Center, which is the Noah Liff Opera Center. Probably the most like common knowledge kind of thing about this piece is, have you ever heard of the composer Michael Nyman? Well, long story short, have you ever seen the movie The Piano? It was done in the 90s, maybe early 2000s. I know I saw it one time. He was the composer for that piece. And that, I think, is like the biggest claim to fame about that opera. The next piece that we're going to be doing is a piece called Florencia en el Amazonas. That's going to be January 26th and 28th at the TPAC. It's written by Daniel Catan. I would basically say it's sort of like a big grand Puccini opera. So like another like big grand like 1800s Italian opera. So for this one is in Spanish, and basically a Puccini orchestra, but with a huge Latin rhythm section. And basically it's about an opera singer coming back to where she was from in the Amazon and basically looking for her lost love. The last piece that we're going to be doing is definitely a family favorite, and you could totally, I would say like high school, you probably don't want to bring kids younger than this, I don't think in general, to a big opera, I would say. But we're going to be doing The Magic Flute by Mozart. That's also going to be at the TPAC, and that's April 12 and 13. I will say, I think it's one of the coolest things about this production is there's a good friend of mine, her name is Raynell Krauss, and she is literally one of the leading Queen of the Nights in the world right now. She sings it literally everywhere in Europe, and she actually just covered it at the Met a couple months ago, and she is going to be our Queen of the Night in this production. So she is absolutely phenomenal, and I think you would be blown away by her. So if you want to find out more information about the main stage shows, you could go to the website again, or you could also call the opera and speak to Stephen Carey, and he would, or excuse me, Stephen McCoy, and he'd be able to give you further information. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was our opera course. So now the opera, we don't actually call it the opera course, we call it the Nashville Opera Ensemble. So basically, it's our course for our main stage productions, and I am also chorus master with the opera, and that just happened in like the last 3 or 4 weeks. So if you know of people that you think might be interested in auditioning for an opera course, please let me know. You again could email me. I've already had 1 day of auditions, 19th. I had a couple other like single auditions. So I've done probably about 25 auditions already. And I have another day of auditions on Monday, or excuse me, next Tuesday, the 27th. And I've got at least 30 people that day that I'm auditioning. So, but there's totally room to add other people in. So the next thing we would like to do is we're going to have another performance by Sangeeta. This piece, I am sure that you all will know. This is I Could Have Danced All Night from Lerner and Lowe's My Fair Lady. I hope you enjoy this number.
I could tonight, not for all the jewels. I could have done it. I could have done it. And still I could have and done it. What made it so exciting? I could have done it. I could have done it. Still I whisper. Oh.
So that's the end of the official program that I had for today. Do you guys have any questions for me or for Claudia or for Will or Sangeeta? Yes, sir.
Growing in the United States and what the demographics are of your audiences?
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is, yes, you still do have a bulk of audience that is basically like 55 and older. But I think particularly with the program that we're able to bring out into the community, like with the Opera on Wheels programs, I think that is actually getting younger people like 20s to 40s far more interested in coming to see Peace because they basically learned that it's not so crazy and not so foreign. And they actually feel like they do know more than they think they do. So I think that is actually drawing in people in the 20s and 40s, because I will say, like when I was at Pirates of Penzance, I can go to, and also the piece Stuck Elevator that we did in January, I would say that probably 45% or not, or maybe even 50% of the audience was, I would say, like 55 and younger. So I think that's a good situation to actually be able to be in. And then again, you know, I think particularly with, you know, school tour shows happening, I mean, you're reaching kids at a younger age. And again, they're seeing pieces that they feel like they can relate to. And again, not seeing opera as this foreign thing that they don't know anything about. They learn completely the opposite, which I think is a good thing, which is going to lead to continuing to be able to have a younger audience coming to shows. That's how I would answer that question.
Yeah.
Yes.
So question for, is it Sanita?
Sangeeta.
Sanita. All right.
No
So
worries.
for us non-musical types, I want to say this for the group, we really don't appreciate the work that goes into training your voice to do this. You know, for any of you that think that she could just stand up there when she's a little kid and just sing this stuff, there's
Right.
no way. Now, in popular music, sometimes that's true in pop music, but how many years did you have to train your voice until you felt confident doing an opera? I mean, a big time opera. How many years did it take for you?
Well, that's a good question. I think it depends on the opera because different roles demand different amount of stamina and also vocal development. I would say it's interesting. I would say I actually have been singing I Could Have Danced All Night since I was young. So what's interesting about that piece is that it has a heart connection for me, which actually helps a lot with singing. I think technically speaking. So that's something I believe every musician and singer should never lose, is that initial love for what they do. And that also will motivate you to keep going when things get difficult, because training can be difficult. Number of years, honestly, the voice keeps developing. And I would say you take lessons, you keep experimenting, you try things out, you see what works, what doesn't. You start to understand your voice more and more through the years. You gain self-knowledge. And then you keep learning because you'll keep growing and changing. And the more you do that, you get confidence more and more, and trusting your voice and your body to do what it needs to do. So that's been my experience.
And one thing that I would add just a little bit to that is not necessarily about the training exactly, but I feel like, long story short, I would say until someone is like maybe somewhere after 8th grade or high school, that's when you really want to be starting to train classically, if you're going to be doing that. We see on the shows all the time, like America's Got Talent, that we see these people singing like these big, huge arias that are horribly inappropriate for their voices at that age. They really like it's not going to bode well for them in the long run. I would strongly encourage that if you have someone that is interested in studying classically, just let them do what they want to do and have fun through middle school. And then if they want to really start to take it seriously, high school is the time to get it.
High school
Yeah,
is
I would say high school. And
so that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
And that's why I want people to appreciate just
Yeah.
how much training and how tough it is.
Absolutely.
To do that, because you did 2 tunes. Now, what you would consider King and I opera, or is that?
Well, My Fair Lady, but that was
Oh, yeah.
musical for
Okay.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, more show tune, but yeah.
But actually, we were talking about this in the company van coming over here for this performance, is that, so I would say, so My Fair Lady, I would put in what I would call like golden age musicals. So like anything Rodgers and Hammerstein, Lerner and Lowe, Rodgers and Hart, Bernstein, even different things like that. I actually really feel like those pieces were actually written for more classical voices. And because to be able to sing like things that had the range, like to do even for I Could Have Danced All Night, like you could sing that in the theater way that, is more for like what they call jukebox musicals, where basically they've taken songs of some really popular musician and basically turned it into a musical. You can sing those in more of a belt voice, as they would say. But to sing these pieces, I would say it's not really quite appropriate. So you would want to be able to have more of a classical voice like Sangeeta has to be able to sing that. I think that's what is expected a little bit more. So, yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming today. One of the things I love about being in Rotary is learning about things I don't know anything about, even though we had opera in Nashville. The last thing I ever took seriously about opera was the Amadeus movie that came out in the 80s. So this is great.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a little silver to show for it. But anyway, I know you said some of the shows were appropriate for teenagers or certain age groups, and with respect to the performances and the variety of the material that you cover. This little one's 8. Is there anything that you could recommend that you may have in your plans or in your program that would be okay for younger kids, or some way that I could help him get more introduction to culture? Because obviously I need it myself.
I mean, what I would say is, I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be an appropriate thing to be able to come along to see the Magic Flute. I mean, there's enough elements in that would be really fun for any kid, I think. But I would probably even say before we're coming to a main stage show, is like I was mentioning, we have our Opera on Wheels program. I would suggest maybe coming to one of our outdoor performances of that in the fall, and maybe being to, introduce them to opera at that point. And then, if the interest still seems to be there, then come see Magic Flute. But I would go to something like an Opera on Wheels first. And then beyond that, so our education director, like I was saying with the school tour shows, she books those directly with the schools. She reaches out to usually like music teachers or maybe someone that's over like outreach events coming in, that kind of thing. But, reach out to the schools that your kids go to and make sure that they're having Nashville Opera on their radar and trying to get them to be able to come to the schools. So, I mean, we were at several schools in Brentwood in February and March. I could not tell you exactly which schools at this point, but we were at several schools in this area. And we actually did a community performance at the library, literally right across the street. So during the tour. Yes.
Oh, he was saying about how long is it take to develop this? An ongoing thing. How much practice do you really do? I mean, you're singing every day, all day. Number one. You also breathe like you do, with the breathing exercise you do, because you might be a little careful.
And that,
it's like your campus never changes.
Very much.
I really appreciate that. Yeah. I do sing every day. I try to, because it's just like any kind of athletic exercise. You just have to keep the muscles, and the vocal cords are actually involuntary muscles, but they're ones that you learn to coordinate. And that actually regulates the airflow. So you are using air and you learn how to use it, but the more you sing, the more you start to understand how the breath works with the vocal cords. and then they become more efficient. So I'm not like struggling as much and I have more intuition about how to use the air. But that has taken many years for me to personally understand and lots of practice. And I think it's just determination to be able to do it and really wanting to, that just kept me going and learning, and I continue to learn. Yeah.
Oh,
I really appreciate it.
yes, ma'am.
Well, I was really amazed by your voice. First of all, thanks, Sangeeta, for coming out and performing here at a mini scale. But first of all, I mean, there are two questions. One is, did you have any, knowing that you're Indian, did you have any background of classical Indian training? And the second was, how difficult was it for your parents to let you pursue this? Because the cultural thing is a big thing. And I've not seen very many Indians do opera singing. I was like totally taken. Yeah, I was shocked about that. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes, so actually my father is, he plays mridangam. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a South Indian, it's a double-headed drum from South India. And it's part of music that's called Carnatic music, which is the South Indian classical style. So that's actually what I grew up with. And that's what I was exposed to in my, at home. And of course at school, I was exposed to Western music, Western classical music. When you're young, it's mostly like in choir, but in high school, I had an amazing teacher. So I was singing like Handel and entering competitions and things. And I think Carnatic training was interesting because I was able to do florid singing without even thinking about it, because South Indian classical music is so melodically complicated. So that's kind of what I first fell into. So it's this type of classical music that has a lot of fast moving notes. So that was kind of my entrance into it. But then of course I had to learn to develop other things. And I did study some singing in college. I took a Carnatic music as an elective, and it's very low and my voice is high naturally. And so you sing more in the speaking range. So that was a very interesting challenge for me. And I actually don't do it as much anymore, but I want to return to it and kind of, and to answer your second question, yes, my parents, growing up, even though my name is Sangeeta, that actually means music. They named me with this name. They're like, that's the name, but you don't pursue that as a career. So my father is like, he can play professionally. He's played with some of the biggest singers in the world, but that's, not in his mind, that's not what you do for a career. So that's been a journey, but they've come to accept it just because I kept doing what I wanted to, so.
So your members know that this week, James gave some very complimentary remarks to the setup crew. However, the setup crew was not at their best today because of Steve and Claudia came in with the rocking out at some evening. So I apologize.
Oh, no, it was all good. Honestly, when I'm not working on something, I pretty much never listen to classical music. I'm always listening to something else. So yes, sir.
So I've been to one opera here in Nashville. It was at the Shimmerhorn.
Uh-huh.
I see that y'all aren't performing there. Are those outside companies that come in to perform there, or just nothing scheduled there?
We don't have anything at the Skirmerhorn this year, but go ahead if there's. I mean,
So we used to perform with the Nashville Symphony. Now we have our own Nashville Opera Orchestra, which is drawn from Nashville studio musicians. When we did Das Rheingold in April of 22, we were missing half our cello section because they were in LA with Chris Stapleton on the Grammys. So Nashville Symphony may bring in outside groups, but we hire locally, nationally, and internationally.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to say the question on what age, we took our daughter who's 3 years old to the Berwick Library when y'all performed.
Awesome.
Goldilocks and 3 Bears.
Yeah.
It was great. She really enjoyed it. So definitely elementary school age kids can really.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I mean, that's the thing is education in opera has developed so much that really there is something for every single age group out there. Like, it's just, you have to actively look to try to find what is the best thing to be able to go to whatever the age is. So thank you guys very much for having me today and having everyone else with the opera. Thank you.
That was awesome. Neat to learn so much more about the opera, Stephen and Sangeeta. You blew us away. I mean, wow. And we have, as a gift for you for coming to speak to us, a pen with our club's logo on it. And we read this book that teaches elementary school age children about the values of Rotary. So we'll ask you to sign the book, and when we read it, we'll tell them about your visit to our club.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else for the good of Rotary today? Any more announcements? No? Okay. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.